Lily had always thought her life would stay the same. She had everything a woman could want: a loving husband, a stable job, and a small, cozy home. But one day everything changed. She couldn't quite remember how it felt, the moment everything shattered, but she knew it was a blow she had never prepared for. The news came so suddenly, like a wave crashing onto the shore, sweeping away everything she had built. Her husband, Tom, the man she thought would be by her side forever, suddenly left. Not because he didn't love her anymore, but because he simply couldn't bear their life together any longer. "You know, Lily," Tom said, standing at the door of their living room, "I haven't been myself for years. Haven't you noticed? I'm tired. I need to change. I need to go." Lily stood frozen, unable to believe her ears. She looked at her husband, the one who had stood by her side through so much, and felt a massive void growing inside her chest. The feeling was like the sky suddenly turning dark, like a storm had just rolled in. Where are you going? Wait," Lily asked, her voice choking with emotion, tears welling up in her eyes. She couldn't stop asking why, but Tom just stood there, silent, unable to offer a clear explanation. The only answer he gave was silence, and then he turned to walk away. The door slammed behind him, and Lily was left standing there as if lost in a fog. She couldn't understand what had just happened. She felt as though she had been abandoned, as though everything she had worked so hard to build, all the beliefs she had about family and love, had been torn apart in an instant. From that moment on, everything in Lily's life began to change. The days that followed were filled with confusion and numbness. She didn't know what to do, didn't know who to turn to. The friends she once had started to pull away, and she was no longer the cheerful, optimistic person she used to be. She had lost the sense of security she once had, and in its place was a deep sense of emptiness. Lily found herself in an empty house, where everything that once felt full of love and joy now felt hollow. She sat on the old sofa, staring at the family photo, feeling as though the perfect life she had once known was just a distant memory. She couldn't understand how things had gone so wrong. The days that followed felt like one long, dark stretch of time, and Lily couldn't see a way out. She woke up each morning in exhaustion, confused, and overwhelmed. Everything had changed so quickly, and she wasn't prepared for it. She no longer felt like herself, no longer recognized the person she had become. One day, while sitting at her desk, staring out the window, she felt a change in the air. It wasn't a storm outside, it was a storm within her. Not a storm in the sky, but one in her heart. All the emotions she had buried for so long began to surface. She couldn't live like this anymore. She knew she had to face the truth and start the journey of healing. Lily didn't know where to begin. She was lost, unsure of what steps to take next, but she knew that she couldn't just sit in the silence any longer. She needed to make a change, but she had no idea how to start. Days turned into weeks, and Lily spent them in a haze. She tried to keep up with her routine, but nothing felt real. Each day seemed to blur into the next, and she felt like a spectator in her own life. She tried to keep herself busy, but it was all just a distraction. She couldn't escape the pain. But then she remembered something her mother had always told her when she was a child. You can't always control the storms in your life, but you can control how you face them. That was when Lily realized she couldn't keep waiting for the storm to pass. She needed to face it. It wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to try. She started looking for ways to heal. She began reading self-help books, journaling her thoughts, and eventually sought help from a counselor who could guide her through the process. Each step, though small, felt like progress. One evening, as she sat in a therapy session, Lily met someone who would change her life. Her name was Clara, and like Lily, she had gone through a painful separation. Clara shared her story of healing, of finding herself again after everything had fallen apart. Clara's words resonated deeply with Lily. Sometimes, Clara said with a gentle smile, we need to lose ourselves in order to find who we truly are. You're not broken, Lily. You're just starting over. Lily had never heard words like that before. She had always thought of herself as broken, as someone who would never be able to pick up the pieces again. But hearing Clara's story, Lily realized that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for her to rebuild her life too. From that day forward, Lily began taking small steps towards reclaiming her life. She didn't rush, but she allowed herself to grieve, to cry, and most importantly, to forgive herself. She learned to trust again, not just in others, but in herself. Slowly, the storm inside her began to calm, and a new sense of purpose started to emerge. The journey had only just begun, but Lily knew that it was the start of something new. And although the path ahead wouldn't be easy, she was ready to face it. The days after the therapy session with Clara felt like a blur, as if time itself was moving differently for Lily. The pain she had been carrying for so long didn't disappear overnight. She knew it wasn't going to be easy, and part of her still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could go back to how they were before. But Lily quickly learned that the past couldn't be reclaimed. The life she had known, the love she had lost, would never come back in the same form. The reality of the situation hit her hard every morning when she woke up to an empty bed, the silence of the house echoing around her. It was as if the weight of the world was pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think clearly. But it wasn't the silence that scared her. It was the thought of having to face herself. The person she had become. She spent the first few days feeling paralyzed, unsure of what steps to take next. She had joined the therapy sessions, yes, and she had started reaching out to people like Clara, but the fear of looking into her own soul, the fear of what she might find, was overwhelming. She had spent so long hiding from her own feelings, from the pain, that she wasn't sure if she could face it all. The first real breakthrough came when Lily finally decided to sit down with herself, something she had avoided for so long. She had been afraid to be alone with her thoughts, to acknowledge the hurt that had been buried deep inside. But now she realized she had no other choice. If she wanted to heal, she needed to face what she had been avoiding. One quiet afternoon, Lily sat in the same chair where Tom had once held her hand. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the memories wash over her. She saw their wedding day, the way Tom had smiled at her as they exchanged vows. She remembered the laughter they shared, the promise they had made to never let go of each other. But then, the image shifted. She saw the years of silence, the moments when the distance between them had grown, the words they hadn't said, the love they hadn't nurtured. Tears began to fall, but Lily didn't try to stop them. She had always thought that crying was a sign of weakness, but now it felt like a release. She wasn't crying for Tom. She wasn't crying for the love they had lost. She was crying for herself, for the person she had become, the person she had forgotten in the midst of trying to hold on to a love that was no longer there. After what felt like an eternity, Lily opened her eyes and wiped away the tears. She felt drained, but in a way, she felt lighter. She had faced the darkness of her emotions, and it didn't feel as terrifying as she had imagined. She wasn't fixed. She wasn't healed. But for the first time, she had allowed herself to feel what she had been avoiding for so long. The next few days were difficult, but they were also the beginning of a new chapter for Lily. She began attending more therapy sessions and spending time with people who could help her process her feelings. Clara, who had become a close friend, continued to offer her support, reminding Lily that healing wasn't linear. Some days would be better than others, and that was okay. One day, as Lily sat in the park, she reflected on everything she had learned in the past few weeks. She had started to see her pain not as something to be ashamed of, but as a part of who she was. It didn't define her, but it was a part of her journey. She realized that she didn't need to have everything figured out right now. It was okay to be uncertain. It was okay to feel lost. And that was when Lily made a decision that would change everything. She would stop waiting for life to return to what it had been before. She wouldn't hold on to the past anymore. She would start building a new future, one step at a time. It wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to try. That evening, as Lily sat in her living room, she picked up her journal and wrote the following words. "Today, I choose to let go of the past. I choose to forgive myself. I choose to embrace the uncertainty of the future. Because I know that I am stronger than I think. I will no longer hide from my feelings. I will face them head on, and I will allow myself to heal." Lily put the journal down and took a deep breath. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in months, she felt like she was finally taking control of her life. She didn't have all the answers, and that was okay. She was learning to accept the uncertainty, to trust that things would get better in time. The next day, Lily took another step. She joined a local volunteer group, something she had always wanted to do, but never had the courage to. She felt a sense of fulfillment in helping others, and the act of giving back made her realize that she still had so much to offer the world. As the days went by, Lily continued to take small steps toward healing. Each day, she faced the darkness a little more, but she also found the light. And with every new challenge, she became more and more determined to create a life that she could be proud of. And so Lily's journey toward healing continued. She was no longer the woman who had lost everything. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone who had the courage to face her fears and take control of her own destiny. And though the road ahead would be long, Lily was ready to walk it. Lily stood in front of the large mirror in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. It was something she had done many times before throughout her life, looking at herself, wondering if she was good enough. But this time, it was different. This time, she wasn't looking at her physical appearance. This time, she was looking deep into the soul staring back at her. The day before, after a difficult therapy session, Lily made a decision to face herself. She had spoken to Clara, who had shared her own journey of finding herself again, of daring to look at her past without fear. "The mirror isn't just for looking at your face," Clara had said. "It's also where you can look into your soul, into the parts of yourself that we often hide." Lily took a deep breath and began to speak to herself. "Lily, you are no longer that woman. You are not the woman who is trapped in past wounds, in feelings of guilt and fear. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be you." She stood there for a while, staring deeply into her own eyes that were tired but also full of resilience. The days that had passed had made her realize that she had been running away from herself. She had avoided facing the painful emotions that had been buried deep within her. But now she understood that she couldn't heal unless she confronted them. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick. but it was a journey she had to begin. She thought back to the pain she had been carrying for so long, the loss of her marriage, the sense of failure, the shame she felt for not seeing the cracks in her relationship sooner. She had tried to distract herself from it all, but now there was no escaping it. She had to look at herself in the mirror and accept the parts of her that she had been denying. Lily had lived so long in the shadow of her pain, avoiding the darkness. She had lived in fear that if she confronted her past, the wounds would reopen and she wouldn't be able to handle it. But now, as she stared at her reflection, she realized that the only way out was through. She couldn't run anymore. The only way to move forward was to face the darkness within. She wiped away the tears that had begun to fall, and for the first time, she didn't feel ashamed. She wasn't crying for Tom, not anymore. She was crying for herself, for the person she had become, the person she had forgotten, in the midst of trying to hold on to a love that was no longer there. It wasn't a sadness that consumed her, but a release, a realization that letting go didn't mean giving up. It meant freeing herself. And after a long while, Lily finally stepped back from the mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't perfect, but she was real. She was strong in her own way. She was someone who had endured, who had survived, and who was ready to heal. The next day, Lily sat at her desk, looking at a blank page in front of her. She had been encouraged by Clara to start journaling, to write down her thoughts and emotions as a way to process them. At first, she had resisted the idea. She wasn't sure she wanted to face everything that had happened, let alone write about it. But now, after the breakthrough in front of the mirror, she felt ready. She took the pen in her hand and began to write. Today, I am facing the truth. I am no longer hiding from my emotions. I am not perfect, and I don't have to be. I am learning to accept my flaws, my pain, my mistakes. I am learning to be kind to myself. I will no longer allow my past to define who I am. I am choosing to heal, to move forward, and to embrace the future, no matter how uncertain it may seem. The words flowed easily, and Lily found herself writing more than she had intended. She wasn't just writing down her thoughts, she was letting go. She was allowing herself to feel, to release, and to heal. Each sentence was like a step toward freedom, a step toward finding herself again. As the days went on, Lily continued to write. She filled page after page with her thoughts, her struggles, and her triumphs. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the pain resurfaced, when she questioned if she was doing the right thing. But with every entry, she felt a little lighter, a little stronger, a little more at peace. One afternoon, as Lily was sitting in a park, writing in her journal, she reflected on everything she had been through. She realized that the journey she was on wasn't just about getting over the past. It was about embracing the lessons she had learned from it. She had spent so many years thinking that her past defined her, that her failures were permanent, but now she understood that they were just pieces of her story. They didn't define her, they shaped her. It was at that moment that Lily decided to take another step. She decided to go back to something she had always dreamed of doing. She enrolled in a writing class. Writing had always been a passion of hers, but she had put it aside for years, too busy with life, too caught up in the whirlwind of being someone else's wife. Now she was ready to rediscover herself. Lily wasn't sure where this path would lead, but she knew that it was the right one for her. She had spent so long putting everyone else's needs before her own, but now it was time to focus on herself. It was time to chase her own dreams, to rediscover her passions, and to build a life that was truly hers. The next few weeks were challenging, but they were also transformative. Lily continued to attend therapy, to write, and to work on healing. She learned to forgive herself for her past mistakes, to stop blaming herself for things that were out of her control. She learned to trust again, not in others necessarily, but in herself. She was learning to love herself, a concept she had never fully understood until now. One day, as she walked down the street, Lily realized something. She felt free. The weight she had been carrying for so long wasn't gone completely, but it was no longer as heavy. She had faced the darkness, and she was learning to live with it. She wasn't defined by her past anymore. She was defined by her ability to move forward, to embrace change, and to take control of her own destiny. As the days turned into weeks, Lily began to feel like a new person. She still had a long way to go, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She was learning to face whatever came her way, to find strength in the most unexpected places, and to trust that she had the power to create the life she wanted. Lily woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside her window, the first signs of dawn creeping through the blinds. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace. The storm inside her heart, while not entirely gone, had calmed down. The weight she had been carrying for so long no longer felt as heavy, and for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. The past few weeks had been a blur of therapy sessions, journaling, and trying to piece her life back together. Each day had brought new challenges, new emotions that she had to confront head-on. But with each step forward, Lily felt a little stronger. She wasn't the same woman she had been before. She wasn't the woman who clung to the pain, the woman who let her fears control her. She had begun to see herself in a new light. That morning, after her usual cup of coffee, Lily sat down at her desk and opened her journal. She had come a long way since she first began writing her thoughts down. The pages of her journal were filled with raw emotions, but also with hope. She could see the transformation that had begun to take place, and while it wasn't perfect, it was real. She was healing. Lily had started taking small steps toward rebuilding her life. She had signed up for a writing class, something she had always dreamed of doing but never had the time for. She felt a sense of excitement and possibility as she attended her first class, surrounded by strangers who shared her passion for words. It wasn't easy, but it was a step in the right direction. She was doing something for herself. That afternoon, after her class, Lily decided to visit her mother, someone she hadn't seen in months. Their relationship had been strained over the years, but Lily knew that she couldn't keep running away from the people who mattered most. She had to make things right, or at least try. When Lily arrived at her mother's house, the familiar scent of cinnamon and fresh-baked bread greeted her. Her mother, Clara, was in the kitchen, humming a soft tune as she prepared dinner. She looked up when Lily entered, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Lily, it's been too long," Clara said, setting down the knife she had been chopping vegetables with. "Come in, dear. Sit down. Let me make you some tea." Lily felt a lump form in her throat as she sat at the kitchen table. It had been a while since she'd felt this comfortable in her mother's presence. Clara had always been the pillar of strength in their family, the one who kept everything together. But over the years, they had drifted apart. Lily had blamed her mother for some of the difficulties in her life. But now, sitting in that familiar kitchen, she realized that the distance between them wasn't just her mother's fault. She had built walls around herself, walls that kept everyone out, including the people who loved her. As Clara prepared the tea, Lily looked out the window at the setting sun, the soft glow of the evening casting a warm light over the room. It was a peaceful moment, one that Lily had longed for. She didn't need to have all the answers. She didn't need everything to be perfect. She just needed to take it one step at a time. "Mom," Lily began, her voice shaky, "I know we've had our differences, and I know I've been distant for a long time, but I need you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to heal, to fix what's broken in me, and I'm starting to realize that I can't do it alone." Clara set the teapot down and turned to face Lily. Her eyes softened as she sat beside her daughter. "Lily," she said gently, "I've always been here for you. I know it hasn't been easy. I know we both have our flaws, but I also know that you are strong. You've been through so much, and you've come so far. I'm proud of you." Lily felt tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at her mother. It had been so long since she had heard those words, and they meant more to her than she could ever express. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen, truly heard. "I don't know if I'll ever be the person I used to be," Lily said softly, "but I'm learning to be okay with that. I'm learning to let go of the past and to forgive myself. I don't want to carry these burdens anymore." Clara reached out and took Lily's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You don't have to be perfect, Lily. You never were, but you are my daughter, and I love you. You always have been enough." Lily smiled through her tears. It was the first time in a long while that she felt like she was enough, just as she was. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to have everything figured out. She just needed to keep going step by step and trust that things would fall into place. The next few days were filled with small victories. Lily continued her writing class, began taking better care of herself, and spent more time with the people who mattered most. She reconnected with old friends, shared her story, and allowed herself to be vulnerable. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was rebuilding her life, one piece at a time. And then one evening, as she sat alone in her room, Lily received a message. It was from Tom. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the message, wondering what he would say. The message was simple, but it meant the world to her. "I've been thinking about you. I know we've both made mistakes, but I still care about you. I hope we can talk soon." Lily stared at the screen, her heart racing. She had been waiting for this moment, but she wasn't sure if she was ready. She had made so much progress, and part of her feared that reconnecting with Tom would undo all of the healing she had done. But she knew she couldn't run away from it anymore. She took a deep breath and typed a response. "I'm ready to talk, Tom, but I need you to know that I've changed. I'm no longer the person I was before. I'm on a journey to heal, and I hope we can find a way forward together." As soon as she hit send, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. It wasn't about getting back together. It was about moving forward, about letting go of the past and embracing whatever came next. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it. Lily sat quietly by the window, watching the rain softly fall outside. It was a peaceful moment, the sound of the droplets tapping against the glass blending with the soft hum of the city in the distance. She had always loved the rain, how it made everything feel quieter, more reflective. But today, as she watched the world outside, something inside her had shifted. The storm in her heart had calmed, and she knew she was ready for the next step. It was time to let go. For weeks, Lily had been carrying the weight of her past, the hurt, the regrets, the loss. It had been a heavy burden to bear, And though she had made progress, she still found herself clinging to old wounds, unwilling to fully release them. It was as if she feared that if she let go, she would lose the only piece of herself that had ever felt real. The pain was familiar, the pain was safe, but it was also suffocating. She thought back to the conversations she had with Clara, her therapist, and the friends who had supported her along the way. They had all told her the same thing. To heal, she had to let go of the past. But that wasn't as easy as it sounded. Letting go meant accepting that things could never go back to the way they were, that her marriage to Tom was truly over, that the dreams she had held on to for so long were no longer part of her reality. It wasn't just about letting go of Tom, it was about letting go of the version of herself that had been defined by that relationship. She had spent so many years thinking that her worth was tied to being a wife, a mother, a caretaker. But in doing so, she had lost touch with the woman she was before all of that. The woman who had dreams, passions, and a sense of purpose outside of her roles in other people's lives. Lily stood up, taking a deep breath as she walked to the center of the room. She looked around at the things that had once brought her comfort, her wedding photos, the little trinkets that reminded her of better times. These objects had once filled her with joy, but now they only reminded her of what she had lost. She realized it was time to let go of these tangible reminders of the past, to create space for new memories, new experiences, and a new identity. The first step was simple, though not easy. She began sorting through the items in the house. Each photo, each keepsake, each letter held memories, but they also held on to her pain. Slowly, with trembling hands, she packed them away. It wasn't about erasing the past, it was about making room for the future. As she placed the final box in the closet, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. It wasn't that she was forgetting, but rather that she was choosing to move forward. A few days later, Lily took another step in the process of letting go. She called Tom. They hadn't spoken in months, and the silence between them had been deafening. She wasn't sure what she expected from this conversation, but she knew it was something she had to do. She couldn't keep living in the limbo of unanswered questions, of unresolved emotions. When Tom answered the phone, his voice sounded distant, as if he were still the same man she had once known, but also not. There was a hesitation in his tone, a lack of the familiarity she had grown so accustomed to. But Lily didn't shy away from it. She knew that the only way to heal was to confront the things that scared her. "Tom," she began, her voice steady but soft, "I've been thinking about us, about everything that happened between us. And I want you to know that I don't hate you. I'm not angry anymore." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, Lily wasn't sure if he would say anything at all. But then he spoke, his voice quiet and tentative. "I don't hate you either, Lily. I never did. I just couldn't keep pretending. I didn't know how to fix things." Lily closed her eyes, a wave of emotion rushing over her. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but hearing his words was like a weight lifting from her chest. For so long, she had carried the bitterness of their separation, the anger, the resentment. But now, for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. "I understand, Tom," she said softly. "I've been trying to fix things for so long, but maybe it's time we both accept that it's over. We can't go back, but we can move forward." They talked for a little while longer, but the conversation didn't linger on the past. Instead, they spoke about their lives now, their hopes for the future, and how they could both find happiness outside of their broken marriage. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. As they hung up, Lily felt a sense of closure that she hadn't thought possible. It wasn't that everything was suddenly perfect. It wasn't. But she had finally let go. She had forgiven herself and Tom, and now she could truly start over. In the weeks that followed, Lily continued to take small steps toward healing. She joined a support group for women who had experienced similar pain and loss, and she began to build deeper connections with people who understood her journey. She found comfort in knowing that she wasn't alone, that there were others who had faced the storm and come out stronger on the other side. Lily also reconnected with her passion for writing. She had always loved to write, but in the chaos of life, she had set it aside. Now she began to write again. Poems, short stories, reflections on her journey. Writing became her outlet for healing, a way for her to express what she had kept bottled up for so long. And through it all, Lily began to realize something important. Healing wasn't a destination. It wasn't a place she would arrive at one day. It was an ongoing process, a series of steps that she had to take each and every day. Some days would be easier than others, and that was okay. What mattered was that she was moving forward, that she was choosing to let go of the past and embrace the future. As Lily looked at her life now, she saw something different than before. She saw possibility. She saw hope. She saw a woman who had been through the storm and had emerged stronger, more resilient. The road to healing wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And Lily was ready to keep walking it one step at a time. Lily stood in front of her bedroom mirror once again, but this time it was different. Instead of the uncertainty that had once clouded her gaze, she saw someone else, someone stronger, someone who had endured, and someone who had learned to rise from the ashes of her past. It had taken time, but she was finally beginning to recognize the person she was becoming. The journey of healing was never linear, and Lily had experienced both progress and setbacks. There were days when she felt on top of the world, when the weight of the past seemed to lift, and she could see the path ahead clearly. But then there were days when the darkness crept back in, when the doubt and sadness returned, threatening to undo all the work she had done. However, Lily had learned one thing above all else. Healing wasn't about perfection, it was about progress. It was about showing up for yourself. Even when the road was hard to travel, today she felt like she had reached a new level of understanding. She had learned to embrace the good and the bad, to accept that her pain was part of who she was, but it didn't have to define her. She was no longer the woman who had clung to the idea of a perfect life, and she was no longer the woman who blamed herself for everything that went wrong. She was learning to love herself, flaws and all. Lily had been back to therapy, of course, but this time, it wasn't the therapy that was healing her. It was the work she had done on her own. The journaling, the reflection, the honest conversations with Clara, and the deep dives into her past had all led her to this moment of clarity. She was finally starting to understand her own worth. She had found the strength to keep going, and more importantly, she had found the strength to live for herself, not for anyone else. A few weeks ago, she had taken a step that at the time felt monumental. She signed up for a solo trip, a trip to a small town by the coast, a place she had always wanted to visit. It wasn't about running away, it wasn't about escaping. It was about giving herself the opportunity to be alone, to reflect, and to find peace within herself. She had learned that in order to heal, she had to embrace the stillness, the quiet moments where she could connect with her thoughts and emotions without the distractions of everyday life. The trip was a challenge, but in the best possible way. The first day, Lily was anxious. She was alone and the silence felt almost too loud. But as the days passed, she began to appreciate the solitude. She spent hours walking along the beach, feeling the cool breeze against her skin, listening to the sound of the waves crashing on the shore. The ocean became a metaphor for her life, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, but always moving forward, just like her. During her time at the beach, Lily had moments of deep reflection. She thought about Tom, about the life they had shared, and about how much she had learned from their relationship. She had thought that he was her everything, that their love would last forever. But now, as she stood alone on the shore, she realized that the love she had been searching for wasn't the love that Tom had given her. It was the love she had to give to herself. She had spent so many years feeling incomplete without a partner, without validation from someone else. But now she was learning that she didn't need anyone else to define her. She was enough, just as she was. The more she thought about it, the more she felt a deep sense of peace. She had found strength in her own company. She was learning to enjoy the quiet moments, the simple things in life that once seemed insignificant. When Lily returned home, she was different. She wasn't healed. Healing was an ongoing process, but she felt stronger. She felt more connected to herself than she ever had before. And that was a victory in itself. The road ahead still had its challenges, but Lily was no longer afraid. She had faced the darkness and had come out the other side stronger. She had learned that strength didn't come from avoiding pain. It came from facing it, understanding it, and using it to grow. Lily was no longer the woman who had relied on the past for her sense of identity. She had started to create a new story for herself, one that was defined by her own choices and her own strength. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. She had begun to believe in her own potential, in her ability to shape her future, and in the power of her own heart. As Lily sat at her desk one evening writing in her journal, she smiled to herself. She thought about how far she had come, how much she had grown, and how much she had yet to discover. She had a lifetime ahead of her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt excited about what was to come. She had found her strength again, and now she was ready to live her life with purpose and intention. The phone rang. Rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Clara. "Hey Lily, how are you?" Clara asked, her voice warm and familiar. Lily smiled, feeling a rush of gratitude for the friend who had been by her side throughout this journey. "I'm good, Clara. Better than I've been in a long time." "That's so good to hear," Clara replied. "I'm proud of you. You've come such a long way." "I know," Lily said, her voice filled with emotion. "And I'm just getting started." "Keep going, Lily. You're stronger than you think," Clara encouraged her. Lily nodded, knowing that Clara was right. She was stronger, and she was finally learning to embrace her own power. The storm might have begun, but she was learning to dance in the rain. She was finding strength, not in the absence of struggle, but in the way she chose to face it. And with that, Lily hung up the phone and looked out the window. The storm had passed, but there was still beauty in the aftermath. She didn't know what the future would bring, but for the first time she wasn't afraid to walk toward it. Lily had always been strong in her own way. She had survived the early years of her marriage, fought through the pressures of raising a family, and always tried to put others before herself. But somewhere along the way, she had lost sight of her own strength. She had spent so long trying to hold everything together for everyone else that she had forgotten how to hold herself together. Now, after months of therapy, journaling, and healing, Lily was starting to understand that strength wasn't about being invincible. It wasn't about keeping up a facade or pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Strength was about being vulnerable, about allowing herself to feel the pain and then finding the courage to keep moving forward, no matter how hard it seemed. One day, Lily stood in front of the mirror again. She had done this before, but this time was different. She wasn't looking at herself in the same way. This time, she wasn't searching for flaws or wondering if she was enough. This time, she was looking at herself with pride. "I am enough," Lily whispered to her reflection. "I am strong. I have survived, and I am going to keep going." Those words were simple, but they carried so much weight. It wasn't easy to admit to herself that she had spent so long doubting her worth. But now she knew she could no longer live in that self-doubt. She had to believe in herself if she wanted to move forward. It wasn't going to happen overnight, but it had to start with this moment, this acknowledgement of her own strength. Over the next few weeks, Lily continued her journey of self-discovery. She spent more time doing things that made her feel alive. She went on long walks in the park, read books that inspired her, and joined a yoga class to help calm her mind and reconnect with her body. Each day, she felt a little bit stronger, a little bit more at peace. One afternoon, as she sat in the park, soaking in the warm sunlight, Lily noticed something that made her smile. A group of children were playing nearby, laughing and running around without a care in the world. It was such a simple moment, but it reminded her of the joy that still existed in life. Even in the midst of pain and hardship, there was beauty to be found in the little things. Lily had spent so much time focused on the storms of life that she had forgotten to appreciate the calm after the storm. She had been so consumed by the hurt and the fear that she hadn't noticed the love and the hope surrounding her. But now she could see it. She could feel it. That night, as she lay in bed, Lily thought about how far she had come. She wasn't the same woman she was when she first walked into therapy. She wasn't the same woman who had been consumed by grief and anger. She was becoming someone new, a woman who knew her worth, who understood that she wasn't defined by her past or her mistakes. She was learning to embrace the present and trust that the future held good things for her. The next day, Lily received a call from her mother. They hadn't spoken much lately, but Lily had made an effort to stay in touch. Their relationship was still a work in progress, but she could sense that things were improving. Clara had always been her rock, and despite the challenges, Lily was starting to feel closer to her again. "How are you, Lily?" Clara asked, her voice soft with concern. "How have you been feeling?" Lily smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I'm doing well, Mom. I've been working on myself, taking things one day at a time. I think I'm starting to find my strength again." Clara's voice was filled with pride. "I'm so glad to hear that, Lily. I know it hasn't been easy, but I've always believed in you." Lily felt a lump in her throat. It had been so long since she had heard those words from her mother. They meant more than she could express. "Thanks, Mom. It's been hard, but I'm getting there. I think I'm finally ready to start living again." Clara chuckled softly. "You've always been strong, Lily. You just needed to remember that. And now that you have, I know you're going to do great things." Lily felt a rush of gratitude for her mother's support. It had taken time, but they were starting to rebuild their relationship. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was all that mattered. In the weeks that followed, Lily continued to strengthen herself both mentally and physically. She completed a few short stories she had started months ago, something she had never thought she would finish. She also began volunteering at a local shelter, helping those who had faced similar challenges. Giving back helped her feel connected to something bigger than herself, and it reminded her that healing wasn't just about her, it was about helping others too. One evening, as she sat in the park, Lily received a text from Clara. It simply read, "I'm proud of you, Lily. You've come a long way." Lily sat there, reading the message again and again. It wasn't just her mother's pride she felt, it was her own pride. For the first time in so long, she felt truly proud of herself. She had made it through the storm. She had survived the darkest days of her life, and she was finally beginning to embrace the woman she was becoming. And in that moment, Lily knew that she was ready to continue her journey, to face whatever came next with the strength she had rediscovered. The road to healing had been long and difficult, but it had also been beautiful. She had found strength in the most unexpected places, in her own heart, in the support of her friends and family, and in the courage to face each day with hope. The storm wasn't completely over, and there would be more challenges ahead. But Lily was ready to face them. She had found her strength again, and now she was ready to live a life full of possibility. Lily had never expected that love could heal her. After everything she had gone through, the heartbreak, the grief, and the overwhelming sense of loss, she had come to believe that love was a fleeting thing, something that could come and go without warning. She had spent years relying on others for validation, for love, and when that was taken from her, she felt as though she had lost everything. But something was different now. She had spent months learning to love herself again, to accept the parts of her that she had once hidden. And in the process, she began to understand that love wasn't something to be sought outside of herself. It was something that came from within, something that needed to be nurtured before it could be shared with others. It wasn't until she met Jack that she truly understood what love could be. Jack wasn't like the men she had known in the past. He wasn't trying to fix her or save her. He simply accepted her for who she was. He didn't come into her life with grand gestures or promises of forever. He came into her life quietly, with a genuine interest in getting to know her, in understanding her pain, and in offering the kind of support that didn't ask for anything in return. It was a warm afternoon when Lily first met Jack. She had been at the bookstore, a place where she often went to find peace and escape into the world of stories. She was browsing through the aisles when she bumped into him. The collision was accidental, but it was enough to make them both stop and laugh. "I'm sorry," Jack said, smiling as he stepped back. "I should have been looking where I was going." Lily smiled back, feeling a spark of connection that she hadn't felt in a long time. "It's all right. I wasn't paying attention either," she replied. They stood there for a moment, exchanging small pleasantries, before Jack introduced himself. "I'm Jack. I think I've seen you here before." Lily nodded. "I come here often. It's my favorite place to unwind." And just like that, they started talking. It wasn't anything extraordinary at first, just casual conversation about books, about life, and about the small things that made them who they were. But something about Jack's presence felt different. He didn't push her to share more than she was comfortable with, and he didn't judge her for the pain she had been carrying. Over the next few weeks, Lily and Jack began to see each other more frequently. They met for coffee and went on walks and shared stories about their lives. Jack listened intently, never interrupting or trying to offer solutions. He simply listened, which was something Lily hadn't realized she needed until she experienced it. She had spent so much time talking about her pain, her struggles, but no one had truly listened in the way Jack did. One evening, as they sat on a bench by the river, Lily found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. The words came slowly at first, but once she started, they poured out. She told him about her marriage, about the pain of losing Tom, about how she had felt abandoned and alone. She talked about the journey she had been on to find herself again, and how difficult it had been to trust in love after everything she had been through. Jack didn't say much at first. He simply held her hand, allowing her to speak her truth. When she was done, he looked at her with understanding in his eyes. "You're stronger than you know," he said softly. "But what you need to understand is that you don't have to go through this alone. You've already started healing on your own, but it's okay to let someone else in, to share your journey with them." Lily looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. For the first time in months, she felt like someone truly saw her. Not just the parts of her that had been broken, but all of her. The woman who had strength, who had resilience, who had the power to heal. "I don't know if I'm ready for love again," Lily admitted, her voice trembling. "I've been hurt so much, and I don't want to go through that again." Jack smiled gently. "I don't want you to rush into anything, Lily. We take this one step at a time, but I promise you, when the time is right, love will come in a way you've never experienced before. You'll find it in yourself first." Lily took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of his words wash over her. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that Jack was right. She had spent so long looking for love outside of herself, and now she was learning to love herself in ways she never had before. It wasn't just about finding someone else, it was about finding peace within herself first. Over the next few months, Lily and Jack continued to grow closer. They spent their time together, enjoying each other's company, but also giving each other the space to continue their individual journeys. Jack was supportive of her growth, never rushing her or pushing her to move faster than she was ready. He understood that healing took time, and he was willing to wait for Lily to fully embrace the love she had for herself before they could share that love with each other. It wasn't easy. There were days when Lily doubted herself, when she wondered if she would ever be able to trust again. But Jack was always there, offering her encouragement, reminding her that she was worthy of love and that her past didn't define her. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, Jack turned to Lily and took her hand in his. "You've come so far, Lily. I'm proud of you. But more than that, I'm grateful for you. You've opened your heart again, and that's something I will never take for granted." Lily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had come so far. She had found her strength again, and now she was opening her heart to the possibility of love, not just from Jack, but from herself. "I'm ready," she whispered. "I'm ready to love again." In that moment, Lily knew that healing wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was about accepting the present, embracing the future, and learning to trust again. With Jack by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. The love that healed her was the love she had for herself, and it was only when she embraced that love that she could truly open her heart to someone else. Lily sat on the balcony, gazing out at the sunset, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink. It was a sight she had seen many times before, but tonight it felt different. For the first time in what seemed like forever, she felt truly at peace. The storm in her life had passed, and she could finally see the calm that followed. She had spent so many years worrying about the future, fearing the unknown, but now she realized that the future wasn't something to be afraid of. It was something to embrace. She had come a long way since the day Tom left. It felt like a lifetime ago, and in many ways it was. The woman she was then, the one who clung to the past, who couldn't let go of the pain, was no longer the woman she was now. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had also been transformative. She had learned to trust herself, to believe in her own strength, and to embrace the love she had for herself. Lily took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill her lungs. She had learned to appreciate moments like this, the quiet, peaceful ones where she could simply exist without the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her life had been filled with so much noise, so much turmoil, but now, in this moment, she could hear her own thoughts clearly. And for the first time in a long time, those thoughts were filled with hope. The past few months had been a whirlwind of change. She had reconnected with old friends, joined a writing group, and even started volunteering at a local shelter. Each new step she took brought her closer to the woman she wanted to be. But most importantly, she had allowed herself to feel again. She had let go of the anger, the resentment, and the fear that had kept her from fully living. And in doing so, she had found a new sense of freedom. Lily's phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Clara. "How are you doing today? I've been thinking about you." Lily smiled as she read the message. Clara had been there for her every step of the way, offering support and encouragement when she needed it most. The bond they had formed was something Lily cherished deeply. Clara had helped her realize that healing wasn't something she had to do alone. She had learned that asking for help didn't make her weak, it made her strong. "I'm doing well. Just thinking about how far I've come, I'm starting to feel excited about the future," Lily replied. Clara's response came almost instantly. "I'm so proud of you, Lily. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Don't ever forget how strong you are." Lily read the message and felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had come so far, and while the road ahead was still uncertain, she knew she was ready to face it. For the first time in her life, she was no longer afraid of the future. She wasn't waiting for something to happen to her anymore. She was taking control of her own destiny. That evening, Lily found herself reflecting on everything she had learned. She had learned that the past didn't define her. She had learned that healing was a process, one that required patience and self-compassion. She had learned that love, true love, started with loving herself. And most importantly, she had learned that it was okay to let go of the things that no longer served her, to make space for new beginnings. As the weeks went by, Lily continued to embrace the future with open arms. She started writing more, stories that had been trapped in her mind for years, stories that allowed her to express the emotions she had never been able to put into words before. Writing became her therapy, her way of processing everything she had been through and everything she hoped to achieve. It was her way of reclaiming her voice. One afternoon, while Lily was sitting at her desk, she received an unexpected message. It was from Tom. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. It had been months since they last spoke, and while Lily had moved on in many ways, there was still a part of her that wondered what he wanted. With a deep breath, she opened the message. "I know it's been a long time and I don't expect anything from you, but I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot about what happened between us, and I regret how things ended. I hope you're doing well and that you found the peace you deserve." Lily sat back in her chair, reading the message several times. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but the simplicity of his words took her by surprise. She didn't feel anger or resentment. She simply felt a quiet understanding. He was part of her past, and while their journey together had ended, it didn't mean she had to carry the weight of their history anymore. Taking a deep breath, Lily typed a reply. "Thank you, Tom. I appreciate your message. I'm doing well. I've learned a lot in the past few months, and I'm grateful for the lessons, even though they were difficult. I hope you find peace as well." As soon as she hit send, she felt a sense of closure wash over her. It wasn't about forgiveness for Tom, it was about forgiving herself, letting go of the past and accepting that everything had happened for a reason. Their paths had diverged, and that was okay. She no longer needed the past to define her. She was ready to embrace the future. Lily spent the rest of the evening writing, the words flowing more freely than ever before. She had found her voice again, and this time it wasn't just about telling her story. It was about creating a new story, one where she was the author, one where she held the pen and decided where her life would go. The next day, as Lily walked through the park, she felt the warmth of the sun on her skin, the soft breeze brushing her face. It was a simple moment, but it felt like the beginning of something beautiful. She had found peace within herself, and now she was ready to live fully, to embrace everything the future had to offer. The days had started to feel less like a blur and more like a series of moments, each one distinct, each one meaningful. Lily could no longer say that she was living in the past, nor could she claim that she was completely healed. She had accepted that healing wasn't a destination, but a continuous journey on, one that would require patience and self-compassion. The first step forward, she realized, was no longer about fixing herself. It was about building something new, a life where she no longer carried the weight of her old wounds. Lily had found strength in the most unexpected places, and with each passing day, she felt more connected to herself. She wasn't perfect, and she wasn't trying to be. She was learning to be okay with imperfection. After receiving Tom's message, something in Lily shifted. It wasn't about longing for the past or wanting to go back to what they once had. It was about releasing the last bit of emotional baggage she had been holding on to, something she didn't even know she still had. She had forgiven Tom, but more importantly, she had forgiven herself. She had stopped blaming herself for their failed marriage. Their time together had taught her lessons, and now she was ready to use those lessons to move forward. Lily spent a lot of time reflecting, not on what she had lost, but on what she had gained. She had gained wisdom, strength, and resilience. The woman she was becoming was different from the one she had been before, but she liked this version of herself. She liked that she had finally taken control of her life, even when the road ahead seemed uncertain. She wasn't afraid anymore. There was no shame in moving on, no guilt in letting go. It was simply a part of life. One morning, Lily decided to take another step in her journey of rediscovery. She went back to the park where she had spent so many hours walking alone, trying to figure out what her future might look like. This time, she didn't come to seek answers. She came to embrace the quiet, to find peace in the simple act of being present. As she walked along the familiar path, she found herself thinking about the future. She wasn't sure what it would bring, but she knew that she was ready to face it. She had let go of the past, and now she could see the possibilities that lay ahead. She didn't need a roadmap for the rest of her life. She just needed the courage to walk down the path that was unfolding before her. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Clara. "How are you feeling today, Lily? Have you had any moments of peace?" Lily smiled, reading the message. Clara had been a constant source of support, a guiding light when things felt too dark to handle. They had talked many times about the importance of peace, of finding stillness within. Lily replied, "Yes, I've been feeling good. I'm starting to embrace the future, and it feels right. I'm not sure where it will lead, but I'm ready to find out." A few moments later, Clara responded with a simple but powerful message. "I'm proud of you, Lily. Keep moving forward. You've earned this." Lily sat down on the bench in the park, taking a deep breath. She could feel the weight of the past lifting from her shoulders. It wasn't that the past didn't matter. It was that she no longer allowed it to define her. She wasn't looking back anymore. She was looking ahead. In the days that followed, I thought was the ICO, Lily found herself embracing new opportunities. She started taking more risks, trying things she had always wanted to do but had been too afraid to pursue. She joined a local writing group and began sharing her work with others. She went on weekend trips to explore new places, taking time for herself to recharge and reconnect with the world around her. She was no longer afraid of the unknown. She was beginning to see that it wasn't something to fear, it was something to welcome. One day, Lily received an email with an opportunity to submit one of her stories to a literary journal. It was a step she had been too afraid to take before. She had always dreamed of being a published writer, but fear had held her back. Now she felt ready. Without hesitation, she clicked submit. A few weeks later, Lily got the news that her story had been accepted. She couldn't believe it at first. She read the email over and over again, her heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't just the acceptance that excited her. It was the fact that she had taken a risk, put herself out there, and succeeded. As she sat in her living room that evening, holding the acceptance letter in her hands, Lily realized that the road ahead was full of endless possibilities. She didn't need to have everything figured out. She didn't need to know exactly where her life would go. All she needed was the courage to keep moving forward, step by step. With each passing day, Lily felt stronger. She no longer saw herself as a victim of her circumstances. She saw herself as a woman who had faced the storm and emerged stronger, more resilient, and more capable of handling whatever life threw her way. The pain she had experienced was not gone, but it no longer defined her. She was ready for the next chapter, and she was ready to embrace it with an open heart. As Lily stood at the edge of the park, looking out at the world ahead, she knew that her journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more obstacles, but she was no longer afraid. She had found her strength, and now she was ready to keep walking the path that awaited her. Lily sat quietly on her balcony, the gentle breeze ruffling her hair as she gazed out at the city skyline. It had been months since she had made the decision to take control of her life, to face the storms inside her, and to embrace the unknown. Now, as she looked back, she couldn't believe how far she had come. The woman who had once been lost in her pain and fear was no longer the same. She was stronger. She was whole again. She was ready. The journey hadn't been easy, and it certainly hadn't been fast. There had been days when Lily wanted to give up, when the weight of her past seemed too heavy to carry. But through it all, she had kept moving forward, step by step. And now, as she stood at the edge of a new chapter in her life, she realized that she had finally found what she had been searching for: peace. Lily had always believed that healing was something that happened quickly, that one day the pain would just go away. But she had learned that healing was not about erasing the past or forgetting the pain. It was about learning to live with it, to accept it as part of her story, and to move forward with that knowledge. It was about understanding that healing wasn't linear, that it had its ups and downs, but that it was a process worth committing to. Over the past few months, Lily had focused on rediscovering who she was outside of her past relationships. She had poured herself into her writing, her hobbies, and her newfound passions. She had started to travel more, experiencing new places, meeting new people, and embracing the beauty of the world around her. Each new experience had helped her heal a little more, and now she felt like she was living her life fully for the first time in years. And then there was Jack. Lily had never expected to find love again, especially not after everything she had been through. But Jack had come into her life slowly, quietly, and without the pressure of expectations. He didn't try to fix her. He didn't try to heal her. He simply supported her, loved her for who she was, and allowed her to grow at her own pace. With Jack, Lily had learned that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being real, being vulnerable, and sharing your heart without fear of judgment. Jack had shown her that love could be healing, that it didn't have to come with strings attached. Their relationship wasn't about fixing each other, it was about growing together, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. With Jack, Lily felt safe. She felt seen. She felt loved, not just for the woman she was, but for the woman she was becoming. But as much as Lily appreciated the love Jack had given her, she knew that she couldn't rely solely on him to make her whole. She had learned that her strength had to come from within. She couldn't place all her happiness in another person's hands. It had to come from her own heart, her own journey. One afternoon, as she sat on the balcony with Jack beside her, Lily reflected on everything she had learned. She looked at him and smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I never thought I'd get to this point," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I never thought I'd be able to heal, to move on. But here I am, and I'm finally ready to embrace everything that's ahead." Jack smiled back, his eyes full of admiration. "You've always had the strength inside you, Lily. I've just had the honor of watching you find it." Lily turned her gaze back to the horizon, watching as the sun dipped below the skyline. She felt a sense of peace settle over her. The journey had been long, but it had led her to this moment, a moment of clarity, a moment of acceptance, a moment of knowing that she was finally where she was supposed to be. She thought about the future, about all the possibilities that lay ahead. She wasn't sure what it would bring, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She had learned that the future wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace, something to be excited about. And with that realization, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had taken the final step toward healing. She had let go of the past, and she was now standing on the precipice of a new beginning. In the months that followed, Lily continued to move forward with grace and confidence. She didn't know exactly where the path would lead, but she had learned to trust herself. She had learned to embrace her own strength, to love herself, and to face the future with open arms. One day, as Lily sat in the park looking at the world around her, she realized that she no longer felt like the same woman who had walked through the storm. She felt lighter, freer, and more connected to the world. The storm had taught her valuable lessons about herself, and now she was ready to live her life fully. No longer bound by the past, no longer afraid of the future, she felt ready for whatever came next. Lily had taken the final step in her journey. She had healed. She had found peace. And now she was ready to embrace the future with hope, with love, and with the courage to walk down whatever path awaited her.